Will you give the press the thing? Okay. So, good evening. I call this workshop session to order. We begin resolutions. Is there a request from Cheryl L. Tabon, owner of Pump It Up, to hold the Cold Turkey 4.5K run? And then we have a request from Thomas Battaglia, Recreation Director, to set trick-or-treating hours and annual Halloween parade. I have the public hearing on proposed local law number 3 of 2018. I want to discuss a little bit that. Obviously, I spoke to many people over the last month, really. I spoke to our attorney, I spoke to our police chief, members of the planning board, many people. And also some of the student association representatives and students. This is what I'm thinking. This seems to be kind of a big problem with the registration of the tenants. I believe that is a very valuable tool in the hands of our police officers, because they are the ones who go there at night and have to know, have to have this information. However, if the board feels that this is something we can reapproach, I would encourage you to do that. And we can do it in a few different ways. All it is one sentence, one sub-sentence, one part of one sentence inside the law, saying, name a date of birth. I have to tell you, I don't know when and how this is invasion of privacy. I give my name and date of birth 3 times a day to whoever stops me, if they do. But at the same time, I understand some of the concerns, I understand some of the safety concerns, and I have to address them. So, we can either remove that if the board wants. We can remove the date of birth, okay, only name. Or we can make the owner or the manager of the house, who's still going to be registered, by the way, all the rentals have to be registered, responsible to give us a phone number that somebody is going to answer 3 o'clock in the morning and give us the information if there is something that's going on. As I said before, I fully understand why we put it there. I fully support that. But this is a small part of a big law. And I want to invite the trustees to say their opinion.
I do feel that portion would be a valuable tool, actually. As far as being foilable, I think that was a question, as people were concerned. I mean, it isn't going to be something that's going to be out in public view, because it wouldn't be on the certificate, but it would be registered with our departments here. But it would not, I don't believe it would be something that's necessarily foilable, so it wouldn't be access to the general public, but it'd be something that the police department or the code enforcement department would have available for their use and needs to correct situations of concern that are either the renter or the police department or the owner of the property has. So I think that it is appropriate to be in there. As far as I think actually Roger mentioned that the date of birth we can look at that, but I'm okay with it at this point.
And what about the foilable? Can you enlighten us? Can we make it not foilable?
Well, I think from a FOIL perspective, I think we could make a solid argument that it would be an unwarranted invasion of personal privacy to FOIL that information. But I think the village could make a solid argument that I would deny the FOIL request.
Doug?
My thought and opinion on this is, I believe it's the responsibility, and this is totally my own thoughts and feelings here, the responsibility of the landlord. The landlord's making money renting to whomever. They're responsible for the property in the house and whomever rents from them. We own rental property in Florida, and we don't give the names and dates of birth of all of our renters to the state of Florida or any other municipality. We have a power of attorney that's there to be taking care of legal responsibilities. So I guess if you have landlords that live locally, I would have them be held responsible. If something happens at their property, they're responsible for the people that they rent to. And if there's out-of-town landlords, I would have them name a person for power of attorney here that would be responsible. And if things happen where the police have to go and arrest somebody, they arrest the landlord for underage parties or whatever. I don't know how that would have to be put into some kind of local law or whatever, but that's my feeling on that. I really don't see how, to be honest with you, like when renters change often, that you're going to keep up with renters' names, to be honest with you here. So I totally believe it's, my thought is it's up to the landlords, and we need to hold the landlords responsible. And if this is just something that that a few landlords are doing right now, that's a problem, I'm not sure why we're not just going after those landlords and instead of making an entire new changes to the system here. And if we can't keep up with what we're doing right now, I just don't believe we need to make more things for our building inspectors and police to do.
This part of what you said is already part of this new law. The owner is responsible, and the owner, if it doesn't live locally in the county, they have to have a manager. So this is part of the law. The thing is, if you want them to give you the names of the tenants, and the original thought was that this is going to make the job of our police officers easier. There was nothing else. That was it. 2 o'clock in the morning, something happens, they know who lives in that apartment or in that house. A domestic dispute, something happens, and you know who lives there. As I said, I understand both sides of this argument. At this point, we do not have a rental registration for anybody. So this is still going to be part of the new law. Still, all the apartments and houses that are rentals have to be registered, and the name of the owner has to be there, and a valid phone number, or the manager if that owner doesn't live in the county. It's just the name and the date of birth of the occupant, actually, that I'm proposing to revisit.
Mayor, what would be the problem with the landlord if there's an instance of a problem that you call the landlord, he comes down to his power of attorney, whomever, comes down to the residence, and they turn over the renters who are renting at the time or something? I mean,
there's no problem right there, but there are many times right now that you call and call and call, and the phone is not answered, and you leave a message, and nobody returns your call. And you say, we have a recent example in the village which doesn't have to do anything with dispute. We're trying to get an easement from somebody, and we send letters to both the owner and the manager, and nobody's answering. So this is a perfect situation if you're a responsible landlord. This law is not mainly for the responsible landlords. It's for the people who break the existing law. Roger?
As part of the committee to draft this new law, We spent a lot of time researching, talking with other municipalities. I know our building inspector and police chief spent numerous hours gathering information so that we could present this, put it together, and hand it off to the planning board. Planning board took a look at it, came back with some recommendations. We tweaked it again and brought it back. So it's been bounced around quite a bit for quite some time. As part of the committee on this, I felt very comfortable with the final draft as it came through. There was a hot topic regarding the date of birth, and I did bring that up numerous times in a couple of our committee meetings. And really, after consideration and looking at it and understanding it a little bit better and having personal issues regarding information about me and when I apply for certain credit or try to apply for certain things with the state, first few questions out of their mouth is, what's your name and your date of birth? So again, I don't feel that we're asking for anything that no one else would be asking for. I would say that if we needed to tweak it a little bit, that the date of birth issue could be limited to, say, a year, or maybe the first digit of the month, or something, just to help identify that an occupant of that property. Other than that, I don't really have any other issues with the law.
Yes, I oppose the listing of the occupants. So I've discussed this in previous meetings, so, and asked the board to consider it carefully, and I believe they have.
So, what do you propose? How you want to go forward?
I propose we move
Propose
forward.
taking that section out until we, or just kind of tabling it indefinitely, I guess. I don't think we need to make these changes currently, but that's my thought.
If we need to table it, we're going to table it for 2 weeks and come back, because the rest of the law, I really feel has to stay there. It's a really good law. It's going to put our community into a list of communities that are not, anything happens and anything goes for. But if you want to take that out, it's going to be up to you.
We know what he wants.
He wants to take that.
If it's to, I mean, the changes to the law are, I think, are needed. This portion, like I mentioned, this portion I think is a good tool, but if it was to hold up the rest of the changes, I think we would then probably best table it to remove just that portion of that sentence. No, that's under 179.91, section D2. That would be just that one portion. If we were to table it, that would be just to do that.
I concur.
That would be comfortable just taking out the date, or
I would be comfortable taking out that section, because, I mean, we tabled this based on this problem from the last public hearing, and I don't know what tabling it for another public hearing is really going to do. Either we take it out now, or
if we take it out, the advice of our attorney is that we need to have another public hearing. But I need to make sure that everybody understands, if we table it, it's only for that sentence. Name and date of birth, nothing else.
And if you change it just to say name and say year of birth, which doesn't really change that, it's just that when the form is its year of birth, we could probably move forward. But if you have to take out that section, as Dan said, we would have to have another public hearing. I mean, if you would like to move forward, I think we could do it either way. I mean,
How about the fall thing?
Again, that doesn't have, they don't have to do anything with that to make it, I would deny the request, right?
Deny.
I would.
So you think we have, like, anybody who comes to foil that information, you'll be able to deny the request?
I would deny the request.
So there is security in that, so that the people don't have to worry about anyone identifying them because of that, living there. because it's not FOIL, you would deny the FOIL request?
Yeah, and additionally, another reason to deny the request, I mean, this was specifically a recommendation and a request, if you will, from the chief of police, okay? And when the mayor and I spoke with Chief Ann Burns earlier last week, she made a couple of good points too. They've had incidences at the college where there have been emergencies, overdoses, other medical problems. The college's records have not been accurate. You know, that she calls a number she believes belongs to the parents. I'm sorry, that's not my child. These records would be updated. Renters do change, but these records would be updated every 30 days. Right now, we have a paper idea in place that would come through Chuck LaBarber's office, and once a month, he would make copies of the new ones and give them to the dispatch. So we did have, I mean, not a up-to-the-minute list at this point, but a list that updated every 30 days. Additionally, we're trying to get a computer system up where that would be linked, and so it would be updated almost instantly. You know, Chuck could enter it in his office, and then the other computers would be updated as well. This is an issue that is a public safety issue, and it also goes to some data being collected for law enforcement purposes. So I think because of while I don't believe it's an invasion of personal privacy to request the name of people that are living in a specific residence, I think it would be an unwarranted invasion of privacy to have that publicly available. And so this is information that would be, you know, to some extent kept in-house under wraps by people that we can trust, like our police department and our code enforcement and our fire department. If you can't trust those people with the names of people, I'm not sure who can we trust.
The board needs to understand too, there's a lot of good landlords out there. There's a lot of landlords that just don't care. We're going into a situation, the building department, one-on-one. I don't know who's on their side of that door. The police department, they have guns and stuff, and they're still, you know, the chief still wants this updated. You know, so I think for all our safety, for your employees, who do I know? I don't know who I'm dealing with when I go into a property. You know, there could be 10 guys there that just are not good people. You know, or at least going in, we'll know who the names are, and I have no radios, no protection, other than to get in my truck and get the heck out of Dodge. So I think it's a good thing for all of us. I think we're not looking for an invasion of privacy. We don't care, you know, about stuff like that. The paperwork that we retrieve won't be once a month. It'll be usually after the semester, when kids usually rotate, or once a year when their renewals are due, they'll give us a new list of tenants. But I think in this day and age, with all the crazies out there and stuff, you gotta protect your employees. The police department, ourselves, we don't know who we're dealing with.
Well,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Is there like a registry of landlords, and if you had an issue where you had to go to the house, couldn't you just call a landlord and say who's renting there at this moment? And they should be able to tell you?
You down to Birchwood, and that's the case where they're talking about the easement, and try to get them to pick up the phone and answer it and give you the correct information. They just want their money. A lot of landlords are like that. They just want that money, and then that's it. Again, not all of them. A lot of them are very good landlords. But yeah, some of them, I can't depend on a landlord picking up the phone if I need something, or if I need to know who's in there or what's going on.
So shouldn't we be kind of focusing on that kind of first, having the correct communication with the landlords, and if they don't communicate, develop some kind of policy or law to address those landlords that are not acting appropriately, I guess?
We thought about that. It's difficult to do.
When you're out of state or out of town,
It's very difficult to do.
I'm only allowed to write an appearance ticket or bring somebody to court one county over. So if somebody, which if I live in Rochester, Pennsylvania, if I want to bring you to court and you live in Rochester, there's nothing I can do about it, and they can sit and laugh at me all day long. Nothing I can do about it. except for maybe kick the kids out, board up the house or something.
I mean, in the Birchwood apartment thing is a perfect example.
That's a
Here-
big problem.
Here we are ready to do a drainage project that benefits their property. There are 2 owners and a manager listed in Chuck's records. I wrote to all 3 parties, attempting to make, contact with them so that we can basically get a temporary construction easement so that we can do a drainage project which is gonna help their property. It's been, what, Chuck, almost a month?
A month.
Okay? We can't even get them to pick up the phone when it's to their benefit. You can imagine how much when they think it's to their detriment.
Well, maybe we should, like you just said, shut their building down, and when they're not collecting rent and their renters start calling them, they'll be calling you real quick.
But we can't do that. We can't shut down a building that is in, I mean.
Safe, that is.
Yeah, I mean, that's all, the only reason you can close a building and pull the certificate of occupancy, if you will, is if it's unsafe. If it's so unsafe that somebody in there has a fairly substantial chance of being in danger. And at that point, then Chuck has to placard the building, and Chuck has to order the tenants to leave. And in that case, right now, we don't have anything for that. This law allows exactly what you're suggesting, and that's why we wrote it. It's not for the good landlords, it's for the bad ones. We've had a couple landlords come and speak. I asked Chuck to pull some violations. We have some stacks here of violations for the landlords, a few of them that are objecting to this. And that's where the objection comes from. It's not the regular 98% of landlords that are doing a good job and keep their properties in compliance and want their tenants to be safe. It's that, 1 or 2% that we're dealing with that this law is important to address. And, it's the same people that were objecting to the law.
A lot of man hours went into this, going back and forth and reviewing it. It would be a shame to lose it and pull that probably the most important part of that document out of there. And in my opinion, and doing this every day,
Well, I didn't think about that. You're right about your safety. You're absolutely right. I'm just, I'm not trying to shovel something down somebody's throat. I'm trying to make a new law here that is going to be good for everyone. But I understand that. I think it's a very valid point. I do.
I know there's a lot of work involved in doing this, but it's worth doing it if we can build a database to help the police department, to help the fire department, so we know who we're dealing with when there's an overdose or when we need to get a hold of somebody. I think the possible invasion of privacy outweighs, the fact that it's something that's a good thing and it's going to help all our agencies.
Do you think that if we pull that out now, let's say, and have it for 6 to 8 months, a whole year, try to see if the landlords are going to be more responsive, let's say, if the police calls them 2 o'clock in the morning and for an emergency, for something. Do you think that would be?
Mayor, I've been doing this for 35 years between both municipalities that I worked at. Landlords don't care, and you could probably ask the chief, their famous comment is, "What are you bothering me for? Arrest them. Don't call me," and hang up the phone. That's what you get. You don't get, "Oh, I'll be right down," or "I'll help you out," or "How can I help you?"
No, I mean exactly. I don't mean exactly that, but maybe they'll tell you, okay, John Smith lives in my house. So out of these 20 kids, or 5 people, because they don't have to be kids really, 5 people who live there, who are there and deny, you go there and you say, who's John Smith? And that it is. I mean, I'm trying to think different ways for that.
Don't forget, for the police department or myself to make an arrest, that date of birth is most important. Without a date of birth, it's not going to go anywhere in court. How is that an invasion of privacy? I mean, the courts need that, so we know who we're dealing with, the right person. If they have to do a summons or a criminal summons, they have the information. Without that, you won't get a judge to do a criminal summons or a warrant. You know, so they, again, they issue
Well,
a parent's ticket and they don't come to court.
But when they get to arrest somebody, then they have to produce identification, ID. You don't necessarily have to have it from before.
Excuse me, can I just say, I'm Dave Fridman, I'm on the planning board here for the village and also was a member of the committee who started this procedure. I just wanted you all to know that the planning board approved the original draft of this unanimously after much consideration, talking amongst ourselves and with the other people who were attending in the original meeting. There's landlords on that board. I've been a landlord here, I've been a student here in college, I've rented properties as an adult. This is the reaction to the existing situation. It's not something that is, oh, well, let's see what happens moving forward. We've seen what happens. This has been something that should have happened a long time ago in the consideration of the planning board. I can't speak entirely for them, but this is what we were suggesting would be the proper procedure moving forward for the village. So I just wanted to say the planning board pushed this forward unanimously when we did. So for what it's worth.
Thank you, Dave.
Madam Mayor, is it appropriate for comments from the public or no?
No.
Good.
Yes. All right, anything else? All right, let's move up. So approval from the, of water treatment plant immediate change out. And then calling for special meeting for October the 15th, 2018. There are quite a few things that we have to tackle on that meeting.
Will that be regular meeting time, 6:30?
Yes. We can have a workshop at 6 and 6:30, the meeting, if that's possible, so we can
Workshop at 6?
finish 6 and 6:30.
Okay, 6.
Okay.
Workshop at 6, meeting at 6:30.
Workshop at 6, okay. All right, and then we have some additions to the fire department roles.
Mayor, under new business, can I also bring up to the board here, a while back on our April 23rd, 2018 meeting, we passed a resolution for meeting procedures. I would like the board to consider in addition to that, during the public portion that we have currently, the public can only speak on matters which are, let's see here. Yeah, which are germane or what the board would take action on, which would mean the public can only make comments on anything that's on the board agenda.
No, it doesn't mean that. It means that's something that the board can take an action to influence, either that day or another day.
Okay, so it's
Which
open
means
to-
I can't come here and discuss the train, program schedule in Buffalo, because there's nothing you can do about it. But I can come here and discuss something that is going on in the village, irrespective if you're going to do something about it that day or any other day.
Okay, well, I would kind of find it strange that somebody would ask a question about something
Well,
going on in
that's
Buffalo
what it
and have
means,
nothing
though.
to do anything, but, okay, that's fine, thank you.
Anything else under new
All right,
business?
can I need an executive session.
Just real quickly before new business too, I'd like the board to reconsider advertising for administrator treasurer position. I do think that there are things that the treasurer, that goes above and beyond the treasurer position as far as like human resources and that sort of thing, and department heads, so.
That's why I have a village clerk, a full-time village clerk, to do everything else that the administrator was supposed to do.
Okay, well, our administrator did, he was kind of the head of the department heads and so forth and that.
The mayor
So,
is the head of the department heads.
in addition to the administrator. So
Not
please,
in
board.
the charter.
I'm speaking to the board.
All right,
Please,
well-
board, would you please consider that?
Yes, thank you.
Can I have an executive session motion, please?
I hereby make a motion to enter into executive session to discuss the medical, financial, credit, or employment history of a particular persons or matter leading to appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, disciplinary, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person.
Specifically in this case, the employment history of a particular individual.
Okay, thank you for noting that tonight.
I second that.
I vote aye.
Okay. Trustee Linden.
Aye.
Trustee Briggs.
Yes.
Trustee Essek.
Yes.
Regular meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Fredonia, duly called and held on the 8th day of October 2018 at 7:30 p.m. Wow. 7:55 p.m. on the third floor, courtroom, Village Hall, Fredonia, New York, and public notice of the time and place of this meeting has been given to the news media and conspicuously posted in one or more designated public locations in accordance with Section 104 of the Open Meetings Law.
May I make this motion? In the absence of Linda.
What is,
Should be up in a second.
oh, well,
It's in the
hold on.
restroom.
Okay, yes, you may.
Whereas members of this board present at this meeting have read the official minutes of the Board of Trustees' regular meeting of September 24th and special meeting of October 1st, 2018. Now therefore be it resolved, this board approves the minutes as entered into the official minutes, and be it further resolved that the reading of the minutes be dispensed with.
I'll second that.
Mayor, I have additions to that,
Sure.
if I could please. On the first vote upon duly motion by Christina and the second by Trustee Linden for the minutes for the last meeting, the fact I did not receive the minutes for July 9, 23, and 26 meetings. Also, trustees report, the reading of the letter was not tabled for Mr. Mitchell. I was just not allowed to read it. And 3, for the front steps of the Village Hall vote, I voted no, and the reason was the board did not receive a quote with monetary figures attached, and to date have not received such. So that was the additions.
Yeah, noted. Thank you. So, Trustee Briggs,
Yes.
Trustee Essek,
Yes.
Trustee Linden,
Aye.
Trustee Barris.
Aye.
Okay, here is not a public portion, but I'd like to invite the public, if you have any comment, not on the law yet, just a general comment. This is a public portion, to, if you want to address the board. Oh, what? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, at the microphone. That's good. Yes. Can you go to the microphone, please?
Sam Drayle, resident of the Village of Fredonia. The board meeting on September 27th, the start of the open session, asking for comments from the village residents in the audience. The mayor said the audience, however, was limited to comments only to those matters germane to action taken by the board or contemplated by the board. In other words, anything else outside of these parameters was not allowed to be discussed by our village residents. This is not good local government, and contrary to democratic principles. I will note that Trustee Essex voted against this. In other words, the village has always had consistent practice for many years, as long as I can remember, of allowing its residents to bring any matters of village concern to the attention of the mayor and trustees. To limit or restrict the village's longtime practice of allowing its residents to freely address their elected representatives on any village matters is undemocratic and a form of censorship on the ability of village residents to address their elected officials.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody else? Okay, I close the public hearing. The public portion, not the public hearing. First of all, Mr. Rayo, we never said that people cannot address the board. germane to the board, to the decision of the board, is simply things that the board cannot do anything about. This is for the board to consider something. If you have a problem, you're more than welcome to come and say the problem. If you have something that the board can address, more than welcome to come and address that. This is not a discussion, I'm sorry. This is my portion now, to address the board. Never stop anybody from doing that. But of course, I'm not going to welcome somebody who has a problem with his friend and come here to just vent. It has to do with public work, with the work of this board.
That's not what you said, Mayor, and it's not in the resolution which was adopted April 27th. It said that the discussion was limited to matters that were germane before the village board and contemplated by the village board.
Contemplated.
Nothing was said about other matters that the village residents.
Contemplated, exactly. Something that the board can do something about. More than welcome, Mr. Drayo. If we didn't express ourselves, let me make ourselves very clear. Everybody, every resident of this village is not only welcome, is actually encouraged by this board and myself to come here and address the board.
On any village matter.
On any village matter whatsoever.
Then I suggest you repeal section 4 of your resolution of April 27th, which says just the opposite.
But, Mr. Drayo, we have an attorney. Thank you.
Read
No.
section 4. It does not state what you said.
All right.
And I would ask
So.
the board to repeal that as soon as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Drayo. So now for my report. I'm going to address something that happened last week. So last week, a village employee came to my office and asked to see me for a few minutes, which it's fine. My door is always open. So he came in and visibly shaken, he said, "How are you doing, Mayor?" I said, "I'm doing fine, thank you." He said, "No, how are you doing with us?" I was totally perplexed because I didn't understand what he said. I said, what exactly do you mean? He said, "I want you to know that I'm here against the advice of my family and friends. I want to know if you plan to fire me." I said, "Why in God's name I'm going to do that?" He said, "This is because everybody in the outside, there is this atmosphere that you're firing people." I said, "Okay, that's not true. Let me make sure you understand, I'm not firing anybody. I'm not here, I'm open to everybody, I'm open to your comments, I'm open to you. I'm here to make sure that you have your position, not that you lose your position." And that brought back to me a comment that was made about a week ago, that people are afraid, people are scared. Of what? Okay, let me make a big announcement here. Is the paper here? Oh, thank God. There you go. I cannot hire or fire anyone in this village. You know who can do it? Trustee Essek, Trustee Britt, Trustee Linden, Trustee Christina, who's not here, and Trustee Barris. Nobody else can do that. I am the biggest supporter of everyone who works for this village. I stand behind each and every one of our employees. I stand behind each and every one for what they're doing. I stood behind Perry Mitchell for everybody's information. When people were coming to me last winter complaining about streets that were not plowed, I defended him, and I defend everybody who works for this village. My grandfather was the president of the union of over 2,000 people about, well, many years ago, at a time where unions never paid their presidents. I would never go against our employees, except if they break the law. If the employee breaks the law, they lose me. Why? Because all of you, all of us, our taxes pay for them. So as long as they don't break the law, I am behind each and every one of them. Nobody can go out and tell them that I'm firing people. I take personal offense. So this is my report for today. Anybody from the board? Mr. Barrett?
Nothing this evening, Mayor, thank you.
All right, let's go to resolutions. Correspondence was received from Sarah L. Tabon, owner, Pump It Up, requesting the use of village streets and sidewalks for a cold turkey 4.5K run on November the 22nd, 2018.
Be it resolved that the request of Cheryl Tabone, as set forth in her letter dated September 21st, 2018, is hereby granted to use the village streets and sidewalks to hold a cold turkey 4.5K run to support our local nonprofit Kids Staying Active on November 22nd, 2018, Thanksgiving morning, with registration beginning at 7:30 a.m. at Sunny's, 43 Water Street, with a walk commencing at 9 a.m. and will continue down Water Street to Webster Road and continuing down Seymour to Howard Street and back to Water Street and ending at Sunny's. And be it further resolved that Water Street between Main Street and Candaway Street be closed during said race. And be it further resolved that Pump It Up provide the village with a certificate of insurance naming the Village of Fredonia as an additional insured in the amount of $1 million. And be it further resolved that the event is subject to the direction of the police department.
I'll second
Trustee
that.
Bridge?
I'll vote yes.
Trustee Essek?
Yes.
Trustee Linden?
Aye.
Trustee Barris?
Aye.
Correspondence was received from Thomas Battaglia, Director, Fredonia Pomfret Recreation Department, requesting that hours and curfew be set for Halloween trick-or-treating in the village of Fredonia and town of Pomfret, and a recommendation for the annual Halloween costume parade.
Whereas the hours for trick-or-treating are hereby approved from 4 p.m. until 7 p.m. on Wednesday, October 31st, 2018 for the Village of Fredonia and the Town of Pomfret, and a curfew be set for 7 p.m., and that parents be encouraged to tell their children not to trick-or-treat beyond 7 p.m. Residents are hereby urged to turn porch lights off at 7 p.m., thus signaling further trick-or-treating will not be accepted. And whereas the annual Halloween costume parade is hereby scheduled for Saturday, October 27th, 2018, starting at 1 p.m.
I want to mention that Trustee Barris brought to my attention that we are not the ones who set the hours for the town of Pomfret. Is that correct?
I said that, yes.
Is that correct? I mean, I don't know. I'm asking.
Do you want me to strike that from that? So
Is
just
town-
the Village of Fredonia, strike out and Town of Pomfret?
Correct.
Okay.
Trustee, are you second?
With that taken out, I second them.
Okay. Trustee Bridge?
Yes.
Trustee Essek?
Yes.
Trustee Linden?
Aye.
Trustee Barris?
Aye.
Correspondence was received from the Secretary of the Fredonia Volunteer Fire Department to add the name of Anthony Martinez to the active rolls.
Be it resolved that Anthony Martinez, Water Street, Fredonia, is hereby added to the active rolls of the Fredonia Fire Police Company effective immediately.
I second the resolution. I vote aye.
Trustee Bridge?
Yes.
Trustee Essek?
Yes.
Trustee Linden?
Aye.
This being the time and place for the public hearing of the proposed local law, number 3 of 2018, entitled Housing Standards, Proof of Publication Shown, I call the hearing to order. I just want to make sure that everybody understands this is not going to be a back and forth. This is a hearing. It's not going to be discussion in order to allow more people to talk. Please don't take more than 3 minutes and identify yourself and then make your comment.
Mark Twitchell, Fredonia. I'd like to thank the mayor, the committee, and the Fredonia Planning, the Town of Pomfret Planning Board for working hard to propose a law which I believe is in the public interest. It's in the interest of the village of Fredonia to have an appropriate means of ensuring the public health and the public safety. I see no intrusion on the proposed registry. If I could only make one modification, I would like to see actually that there could be a voluntary registry whereby landlords who have entered into the registry could voluntarily list their names, not necessarily the names of their tenants, but their names. And the reason for that is that there are many landlords, such as ourselves, whose clients are very safety-oriented. It's a very competitive market. We're in college rental, not in a big way, but we do have one property. And we would very much look at a voluntary registry as a competitive edge, so that prospective tenants could refer to the list, and that we feel that that would be an advantage for us. So thank you very much.
Anybody else? Mr. Gall.
John Gullo, I live at 221 Central Avenue. I'm here tonight on behalf of a number of local landlords. To my knowledge, they all live here. To my knowledge, none of them have anything pending with the village. I'm going to end with the stuff on the registration so that we hit the high point, but there are some other problems with what I believe to be proposed. Now, this afternoon, I got a copy, my office got a copy of Resolution 3-2018. I assume this is what you're voting on, but I'm just bringing this to your attention that I was handed this today. If this is different than what you're voting on, I think there's been some different versions floating around, and just being very careful. Okay, so hitting a couple of the quick points. This proposed law changes the square footage requirements as that relates to maximum occupancy. I'm not sure that you know, and I don't know, I don't have the capacity to learn how many properties maximum occupancy would be violated or changed as a result of this. This change affects all real property in the village, as near as I can tell from your proposed law. Before you vote it in, I think you need to know how many properties it affects, how many properties that are currently rentals, and how many properties that aren't currently rentals but that could lawfully be turned into rentals in the future. Because what you're doing by changing maximum occupancy is you're changing the value of that property. You're changing how much you can get in tax money on it because you're changing the value. You can't respectfully vote on a change without knowing how many. How many? Now, you might get the answer that it affects very few. If it affects very few, then how in the world could it ever change anything or fix anything? Or you might get the answer that it's affecting a lot. If that's the case, it might change something. It will certainly change the value of those structures. But is it a fix that's designed to fix an existing problem? So I'm not sure that we object. The landlords may not object to this because in actuality, none of them might be affected. The problem is that I don't know if you know how many would be affected. So that would be the first thing. Don't vote on something unless you know who you're hurting, because I'm not sure it's designed to help anything. Second, the new section 17983 gives an incredible power to the code enforcement officer to regulate the morals and welfare of the public. I have a really good joke, but I'm assured that it won't go over well. So I don't think you want to give that much power. Health and safety, which was what Mr. Gard earlier was talking about. Health and safety, fine. Morals and welfare, I'm not really sure that's a proper power for my friend Chuck, and I'm really not sure it's a proper power for you to be regulating that through your zoning code in this way. All right, number 3. The current revisions purport to tie in the International Property Maintenance Code. Now, the International Property Maintenance Code is a code designed by people that none of us know, in a place that none of us are. We don't have a say in it, and it appears from the internet that it's revised every year. Now, when you make a law, you have to tell people what's in that law. That's a part of it. And when the law changes, you have to tell people that too. So by tying in the property maintenance code, you're essentially taking a shortcut. And it might be an understandable shortcut because something changes, you say. Well, here's the thing. When something changes, you have to change it. It's your code and you're responsible for it. And doing it in this way, if you tie in the International Property Maintenance Code and then you try to enforce something that's in it, you're giving me, the defense lawyer, an argument that it's an improper, unenforceable law. So I would just suggest to you that the old law says many of the same things that's in the International Property Maintenance Code. It was working okay. If there's a particular problem where we have to add something, let's add it. But let's be specific and let's give all of our people true knowledge of what's in the law. All right, now we're on to the tenant registration issue. I heard all of your discussion during the workshop tonight, and it's very frustrating because the things that you're being told are true, but they're also not things that this will fix. This is shooting a gun at something that isn't going to hit it. It isn't going to fix anything, okay? Of course we want Chuck to be safe, and of course we want our police officers to be safe. Of course we do. Knowing who lives there won't do that because people have guests. Knowing who lives there does nothing to keep Chuck safe. Chuck has to be safe. Completely agree. If he doesn't feel safe, he shouldn't be there. If something happens to him, how in the world does knowing who the tenant is, how in the world would that keep him safe? It certainly wouldn't, okay? As for law enforcement has a very clear, bright line. It can go in when there is a violation of the law. It can do something when there's a violation of the law. It can enforce the law when there's a violation of the law. If there isn't, they can't do anything, period. It's very simple. Knowing who lives there isn't going to keep anybody safe. Why? Because these students move around. There is nothing. I don't really want to make your law better because I think this part is horrible. But your law doesn't say that I have to update it every 30 days. It doesn't say anything about that. It doesn't say that when a tenant moves that I have to update it. It doesn't say it. It can't be done, and you can't make me do it unless it's in the law. I really don't want to make it better. But there's a problem with doing this. I understand that Mr. Guard is indicating that he will turn down the FOIL request. He also has to tell you that somebody can sue you for it then. And they might win that for a negligible, easy to lose, possible gain. Law enforcement officers have to be safe, of course. But knowing who lives there doesn't stop an assault. It doesn't stop anything. They can look through the window. Why do they want to know the birth date? Well, they look through the window and they see somebody with a cup of beer, and they think, now I know. They're serving alcohol. Well, see, here's the thing. That's still not probable cause, and they know that too. Because if I'm throwing a party at that house, I am assuredly old enough to do so. So we have a very minimal possible gain for a very, very significant intrusion. The only reason that law enforcement wants this is to track a population. It is the only reason to do it. They want to know where our non-property owning residents are living. Some of those are college students, some of those are people that aren't owners, they just are renting. They want to know. I understand wanting to know. I also know that that's an intrusion. That's overstepping. And just because the police chief wants it isn't a justification for legislation. That isn't a purpose. That isn't a public purpose. You have to have more than that, respectfully. Now, on top of that, as currently drafted, which is what I'm dealing with, I'm hoping that you're going to turn away from that. To make matters worse, the new law says that it gives the police the right to enforce the Tenant Registration Act. It's one of the last provisions of your proposed law. First of all, the police have plenty to do already. If you really want to stop the problems, unfortunately, you have to spend money. You have to hire someone else for Chuck's office to help him out. And you have to hire a couple of police officers, which frankly, I made that argument to the board, previous board, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. We need another couple of officers. They're dealing with meth houses in the village of Fredonia. We got to do something about that. We're dealing with an opioid crisis that is very significant. We need more officers, I agree, but not to enforce a tenant registration law. That's Chuck's job, respectfully, and so this is kind of the equivalent of a police state sort of rule. I realize I'm going too far, but there's no other justification for wanting to know where everybody lives. Know who owns it? Fine, no problem. So, I'd be very cautious about this. At the end of the day, the question you need to ask council: has a tenant registration ever been passed upon successfully by a court? To my knowledge, the answer is no. I have not been able to find any court, so we are doing an untested law. It has not been passed by any court. Now, we've looked, in the past, to various individuals and myself, names of towns or villages have been thrown at us that this is where we got this law from. We haven't been able to track those down. Now, I trust you. I trust that there are some places that have done something like this. We found them as to landlords that live out of town. We have not found anything that is a tenant registration that gives their date of birth and their name. I certainly haven't found it in any reported case in New York. I tried to do a nationwide search. I wasn't able to find one, but it was hardly an exhaustive search. So the question is, why are we getting into this for what is possibly a very minimal gain that is reasonably likely to draw a lawsuit for its overreaching nature? Okay, and that's really the question. The rest of this, well, I think there's some problems with it. That's up to you if you want to fight about morals and such things. I suspect you don't. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bowman. Anybody else?
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Connor Aitchison, president of the Fredonia Student Association, and I'm here to speak on behalf of the students and student representatives of SUNY Fredonia. This past Thursday, the General Assembly of the Student Association voted to ratify a resolution outlining our opposition to specific sections of the proposed amendments to the village housing standards. Copies of this resolution should have been shared with the mayor, the village attorney, and the trustees through the office of the village clerk. This formal opposition serves as the official position of the sole representative body of the Fredonia students and is a product of great debate and deliberation among our representatives after hours of research and formal meetings with leadership from the village and the university. Of specific concern is the proposed implementation of a registry that would require personal information of tenants who rent within the village limits, which is outlined in section 179-91D2 of the proposed amendments. A minor concern, and one that is perhaps out of our purview, is the logistical issue of maintaining and updating such a registry and the wording of this specific proposed law. Section 179-91D, as it is currently written, does not appear to require that the property owner update the registry information, notifying the village of any changes of occupancy, number of occupants, or occupant information. Thus, it neither specifies a time frame in which such updates must be made, which eliminates any accountability on the end of the owner and any means of enforcing the updating of the information. Assuming these issues are addressed or are not entirely applicable, the demanding effort that it would require to ensure the registry is updated regularly is still of grave concern. Failing to properly update the information in the registry could have a drastic impact. Referencing outdated information could potentially hinder any police, fire, or emergency medical services, more so than not having this information on file in the first place. With this minor concern aside, the principal fear of our students pertains to personal safety and the risk any registry of tenant information may entail. This concern of safety relates specifically to individuals who may be survivors of sexual assault or domestic violence, those who may have an order of protection against another person, or those, for whatever reason, would opt out of having their personal directory information disclosed by the university, as is their right under the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. In these and many other instances, we are potentially putting these individuals at further risk by having their name associated with their place of residency on file, which could be accessed via the New York State Freedom of Information Law or made public as a result of lack of safeguards put into place by the village. The underlying issue is that of personal privacy. While certain social characteristics and representations, such as the increased use of social media, may lead our generation to be viewed as being unconcerned with privacy issue, this overgeneralization shall not diminish the legitimate concerns for the safety of our students. While I do believe that the safety of our students and of all Fredonia residents is at the heart of those advocating for this registry, the Student Association is not thoroughly convinced that the current framework and lack of specificity within the law can guarantee that this registry will increase safety more so than potentially leave people in a more vulnerable state. This proposal appears to be a request to give up personal information and privacy for very little guaranteed in return, and with no solidified or adequate rationale. Let me be clear in saying that the Fredonia Student Association is opposed to the creation of any registry that require personal information of tenants, regardless how minimal. The posed risks are too grave, and the perceived infringement of privacy is unnecessary, simply to be exchanged for what little this registry would aid in providing our students in the village of Fredonia as a whole. We urge that the board amend local law number 3 of 2018 of the Village of Fredonia by striking name and date of birth for each occupant from section 179-91D2 prior to the vote on the main motion to approve the proposed changes. Due to our unique experiences, perspectives, and concerns, I firmly believe that it is crucial that the voice of our students be heard and heavily considered when debating any piece of legislation that explicitly targets this prominent population of our community. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you very much for your work. I want to commend the whole Student Association. That's great work that you did. We spoke before. Really, really great work. Thank you very much. Anybody else?
Good evening. My name is Harold Whitford. I am a Fredonia landlord, and I'm also president of the Jamestown Real Estate Investors Association. There's a couple of things. One is where you have the wording about withholding rent for any violation, code violation. It's really vague. I really suggest the state law already has it. It already has it for certain codes. It's very distinctive what the person has to do with their money. The wording I've seen in your proposal is just very confusing for the tenants. I suggest you totally strike that, let the state law prevail. I've heard a lot of talk about the personal information for tenants' birth dates. I agree with everybody that said it should not be there, period. Last meeting I was at, I heard a statement about businesses having to have permits, etc. Kind of alluded to the fact of a landlord being a business. According to federal law, a landlord is not in business until they reach a certain threshold. It's called passive income. That's just a statement that I'm making because I did hear it, and a landlord is not a business until they reach a certain threshold. Now, the landlord registration We are working on one in Jamestown right now. I was on the committee a few years back. We came up with a landlord registration form, 1 page long. Because what a landlord registration is really trying to do, I believe, and I think the police and fire department will agree, they need to know who to call at 2 o'clock in the morning if there's an emergency. All the landlords in this room will tell you, we want to know if there's an emergency at our house. So if you have a database that a landlord registration could be fed into, that the emergency personnel could access 24 hours a day, then a landlord registration makes sense. If a landlord registration is put in a file cabinet in City Hall and closed down at 5 o'clock and over the weekend, it's totally useless. I am willing to share the single-page registration form that the City of Jamestown came up with your community. If you'd like to see it, we'd be more than happy to. It's not intrusive, there's no tenant names, there's no birth dates. I think that's what's killing everybody in this room. It's invasion, big time. Now the perpetualism of it. We proposed to the City of Jamestown, proposing to you here, the form that you end up coming up with that is acceptable to yourselves and the public that's involved. Present that form to the North County Bar Association, as we've suggested be presented to the South County Bar. Make it part of the closing statement for real estate. So it's perpetual. You know who the owner and the contact person is upon change of ownership. Okay? Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you very good. Thank you very much. I believe ours is 1 page too. All right. Anybody else?
Hello, I'm Dave Fridman. I'm on the planning board for the Village of Fredonia. I'm a local resident and also a landlord. And I just wanted to say that some form of this law should move forward. Something should change. The time is long past where we're discussing whether or not something needs to be done. Something needs to be done. Now, whether you take out this line or that line or change anything else, I think that's fine. It's up to you guys to decide that, and I can't wait to find out what you do. But the planning, as I said earlier, the planning board did approve this unanimously, and any changes you guys want to make will also be behind. I think that'd be fantastic for you guys to move forward with something to make our community better, which is absolutely the only intention behind what we're doing. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Anybody else? All right, so we're closing the public hearing and go to resolutions.
Be it resolved that Anthrofilter of Niagara Falls, New York is hereby retained to supply and install media changeout filter beds number 1 and number 4 at the Fredonia Water Treatment Plant per the proposal dated September 9th, 2018 at a cost not to exceed $19,892.
I second that motion.
Trustee Briggs. Trustee Essek.
Yes.
Trustee Linden.
Aye.
Trustee Barris, yes.
I said yes also.
Yeah.
Dr. Barris answered for me. Thank you,
Yes, he
Dr.
did.
Barris.
You're welcome.
Be it resolved that a special meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Fredonia will be held on Monday, October 15th, 2018, at the time of 7 p.m., immediately following the workshop session to consider any business that may come before the board.
I second that.
I vote aye.
Trustee Briggs.
Yes.
Trustee Essek.
Yes.
Trustee Linden.
Aye.
Trustee Barris.
Aye.
Whereas the Board of Trustees of the Village of Fredonia
Just a second. What do you want to do? So,
Is that okay?
intro to local. Intro to local.
Right here, that section.
Mr. Bates.
I'd like to make a motion to table.
That's all right. Whereas the Board of Trustees of the Village of Fredonia are desirous of amending Chapter 179 housing standards of the Village of Fredonia to provide, and whereas a public hearing has been duly called to held before the Board of Trustees of the Village of Fredonia on the 8th day of October 2018 to consider the question of enacting a proposed law, Local Law Number 3 of 2018 of the Village of Fredonia entitled Housing Standards. And whereas proof of publication in the Observer publication in the Observer of the notice of public hearing on said proposed local law has been presented to this board. And whereas proposed local law number 3 of 2018 of the Village of Fredonia in its final form has been laid upon the desks of the members of the Board of Trustees in the Village of Fredonia at least 7 calendar days prior to this date. And whereas, after duly deliberation, this board seeks to enact said proposed local law.
At this point, I'd like to make a motion to table this law until the October 22nd, 2018 meeting. Introduced local law number 3, 2018, Village of Fredonia local law to amend Chapter 179 of the Fredonia Village Code entitled Housing Standards. And call for a public hearing at that date.
Anybody second it?
I'll second that.
Okay. Trustee Bridge.
Yes.
Trustee Essek.
Yes.
Trustee Linden.
Aye.
Trustee Barris.
Aye.
Right, so we table this law for 2 weeks from today, October the 22nd, 2018, with the purpose to change that line. All right, let's go forward.
I move to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Trustee Bridge.
Yes.
Trustee Essek.
Yes.
Trustee Linden.
Aye.
Trustee Barris.
Aye.
Thank you very much for coming.